What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/ProRevenge. Alright, this story's called Manager Bullies Me for Several Months Until I Finally Quit. I made sure to get him fired. Obligatory, English is not my native language, apologies for my mistakes and grammar. This happened around 2016. I'd, at the time 25-26 male, been without a job for a while, looking for a better paying job than I had before, and I found one at a camera security company that was looking to hire someone for the service desk. I went for an interview and got a call back later that day. If I wanted the job, it was mine. Now, my new manager was an ex-military, specifically ex-army, not American, just pointing that out. He really didn't like having people disagree with or go against him, a thing I was very unaware of when I took the job. For 2 to 3 months, everything was going well. The manager was cordial and seemed to really enjoy having me there. I worked my butt off every day, as the software we were working with was unknown to me. So I studied a lot and even went overseas to another country to follow a course and succeeded on my exams. However, after that period, my grandpa, who was like a second father to me, suddenly was hospitalized after a brain bleed. An aneurysm? He was found in the shower. He had collapsed after he pressed his panic button. Assisted living? Not sure what it's called in English. Apologies. This all happened on a Wednesday. The family came together in the hospital several times to show support and see Grandpa. However, on Friday afternoon, 3 p.m., I was called up by my father, my grandpa's son, while I was at work, and he explained to me that my grandpa unfortunately passed away. I was in tears on the phone and in utter shock. It took me a while to calm down. I went to my manager and explained what just happened and that I was going home to be with my family. However, that day there was an event. The company was doing a charity event, and this charity was going to be public news. They already announced the amount of people participating, and it would look bad if they were a person down. It was basically just for good PR. So he refused to let me go. I told him that by law, he cannot deny me, as my contract states I can take a day off for a death in the family, and that I was leaving now. This was the turning point. He went from a nice manager to a manager from hell. Suddenly, everything I did was wrong. I was told he couldn't believe I was in this line of work for 6 years and be this bad at my job. He cussed me out and ridiculed me in front of my colleagues and even clients. This all continued for several months and severely began to impact my mental health. I had a talk with my parents and my fiancée, at the time still my girlfriend. I'd asked her to marry me in December 2016, and they basically told me that this was not okay, that I didn't have to take this and that I should give them my 2 weeks notice. I agreed. The following day, I went to HR and explained why I was leaving the company and that I couldn't stand the idea of working even a single day more with that excuse of a human being. HR showed interest in my well-being, and even more importantly, in what I was claiming about my manager. They had received more complaints about him, but nobody had proof of his wrongdoings. So they asked me if I had proof. I told them I'd be looking for a new job, but I'd gladly fit in the time to collect all I could. For the next 2 weeks, I collected everything: memos, emails, voice recordings. When on the phone, the calls are automatically recorded, and the dumbass was stupid enough to cuss me out while I was on the phone. Lucky me. Also lucky was that my colleagues at the desk had my back this entire time. They'd been trying to cheer me up, said I was doing fine work, and that they also didn't understand this man's behavior. So when I came by and asked if they'd mind signing a document that everything I stated in the paper was true, they gladly did. I had one last talk with HR and him at the same time the last day I was there. Before he even walked in, I told the HR person who was mediating, he's gonna walk in, say what he wants to say, and I'll be quiet and listen. When he's done, I'll explain my side, and he's gonna interrupt me, tell you I'm lying, and talk about completely unrelated subject matters to drag the conversation another direction. She looked surprised at my comment. comment, but had no time to respond as Mr. Army Man walked in and began his spiel, exactly as I stated. He'd blurt his side out, and once I tried to talk, he'd consistently interrupt me and tried to pick fights. Eventually, I got up, told HR, "I told you so. Here are the documents you've asked for." I placed a filled folder with several dozens of emails, plenty of memos, and a USB containing 3 phone conversations and even video footage of him yelling at me. In both voice and video recordings, you could easily hear him cuss me out. I gave the manager a big, bright smile, who was smirking victoriously, and said to him, "I don't think you'll be smirking like that for long. Enjoy your little victory." His smirk disappeared into a confused scowl, but I slammed the door on him before he could respond, and left the building feeling like a huge man, and I mean humongous-sized, planet-sized amount of stress fell off my shoulders. Within a month, I was back to my old self. 2 months later, I was working at a new job, and out of curiosity, I checked my ex-manager's LinkedIn. Unemployed. I called one of my old colleagues to ask what exactly went down. My proof opened Pandora's box. He was being disrespectful to the female staff, insulted the older staff, and on multiple occasions was less than cordial with our external hires. None of these complaints were acted upon because it was his word against theirs, and there was no proof. However, me providing overwhelming proof of his gross behavior towards me made all other complaints now be taken as fact. He was promptly fired less than a month after I left, and they refused to provide him with any form of reference. In a field like his, references mean a lot, so not getting one from a company you worked at for nearly a year is a huge red flag. It is now 2020. 4 years passed, and according to his LinkedIn, he's still not working in his field. I'll gladly admit that I felt rather wickedly satisfied, and still do whenever I happen to think about it. Well, congratulations, you should feel wickedly satisfied because someone like that doesn't deserve to be in charge. They don't really deserve much, but that's not my place to say. Alright, this story's called Fake a Broken Arm, I'll Get You Deadlined. Years ago, back in high school, I worked in a retail hardware business, along with a few part-time guys going to college. One of our jobs was accepting deliveries from the corporate warehouse. Because the truck was full of merchandise, some for our store, some for other stores, we weren't allowed to go into the trailer. The truck driver was responsible for going into the trailer and pushing the boxes of merchandise onto the rollers, where we would then take possession, check them against the bill of lading, and then sign off receipt of the items. It was a smooth process until a new truck driver was hired. He was your stereotypical truck driver. Big belly, greasy hair, a loud mouth, and constantly smoking. And he was lazy. The first time he arrived, he told us to unload the truck ourselves, went to the crapper, and stayed there for over 30 minutes. I unloaded the truck. It took far longer than normal, but I was diligent and did not remove any items that were not ours. This continued for several weeks, and the unloading process took away time that we could have used putting merchandise on the shelves. The boss finally had enough and called corporate. The driver must have been reprimanded because when he backed into the loading dock the next week, he hopped in the trailer, set up the rollers, and began unloading. But he was going to get even. His version of ProRevenge, I guess. When I would grab a box off my end of the rollers and carry it into the warehouse to stack, he would push another box down the rollers as hard as he could, send it crashing to the floor. Some of our products were glass, so it was possible something was going to be broken. I stopped what I was doing, got the boss, and explained. The boss told him no one was going to sign off until every box was opened and inspected. Bear in mind, the average load was around 200 boxes. The truck driver got pissed and drove off without finishing the unload. He was hurting himself by doing so because boss called corporate right away. We closed at 6 every evening. The truck driver knew this. He showed back up at 5 minutes before closing time and made many butthole remarks while slow walking the unloading. One of my coworkers was a good-sized country boy who liked to chew beech nut tobacco. He finally got so aggravated, he spit on the truck driver's pant leg and told him to or else he'd whoop his ass. He shut up, but for the next 3 or 4 months, whenever he showed up, there was some kind of conflict. He would go out of his way to make the simple act of unloading a truck as difficult as possible. Fast forward to December. It was cold, and the delivery was twice the normal size. Christmas season. He parks, gets out, and informs us his arm is broken, and therefore he is not going to help with the unload. I was ambivalent, but my big country coworker was tired of this man's nonsense. What the truck driver did not know was that there was a state trooper in the store shopping. He was a close friend of my coworker, who had gone out front to find him and told him about this truck driver. Little did any of us know, in my state, you cannot legally drive a big truck unless both arms are in working order. ADA may have since changed this law, I don't know. The trooper came back to the loading dock and demanded to see all of his paperwork. He then conducted an inspection of the truck. I learned a lesson that day. Tickets from state troopers are expensive as hell. Truck driver got 3, and then the trooper held his license and deadlined his truck until he went to the hospital and got a clean bill of health on his arm. He had to pay for a cab to the hospital because none of us would drive him there. Little did he know, after he left, the trooper took the truck driver's license and paperwork, stuck it under the windshield wiper, and left. The truck driver came back 3 hours later with paperwork. We can only assume that he had to go to the emergency room and get x-rays. He was extremely pissed when he learned what the trooper did. He was even more pissed that we were laughing at him and stood in front of the store, waving at him as he drove off. We never saw him again. He either demanded a different route, quit, or got fired. I don't know, but I guarantee he never forgot about us or our ProRevenge. Okay, good. Serves that kid right, because I genuinely cannot stand when someone does not do their part of their job, because then you're forced to pick up the slack and you're freaking suffering. I hate it. I hate it so much. Oh my gosh. Don't work with family, guys. Do not work with family. Actually, just don't work with anyone, because people are just unreliable. I say that, but sometimes I can be too. I'm not perfect, but at least I try. I try not to be perfect, because who needs that, but to not be unreliable. Alright, this story's called Don't Want to Return My Tools or Pay Me? Enjoy losing your business. I'm a trade painter that worked for around 5 years, essentially running a company for an owner who took a very hands-off approach. He was essentially a name and working capital and not much else. After getting an offer to work for a bigger commercial company and my old boss's realization he would have to run his own company as there really wasn't anyone else in-house that was qualified, he resorted to acting like a child to try and make me stay. Made me run around the world to receive my final pay, which I never even got, and refused to return my tools spread throughout various jobs. Revenge time. As luck would have it, an even better offer from an even bigger company ended up in my lap that wanted to subcontract me a very substantial amount of their work, but I'm gonna need more employees than that. So I go through and call each and every member of the original company and offer them a $3 an hour raise to work for me, which all of them accepted. After all, they know me. They've worked for me for years, and it's more money. No brainer. They barely know the owner, and what they do know, they don't like. I then ask them to grab only my tools, which was the vast majority of the tools on all the jobs, from their respective jobs when they leave for the weekend on Friday. Monday rolls around, and my old boss is getting calls left and right from supervisors asking why nobody's at work and what's going on. He was so hands-off, he didn't even have employees' phone numbers to call and ask them. My butt's on the ground. He's essentially without employees and little to no tools to complete any jobs at this point. Fast forward 6 months and his company has now closed. He's lost all his work. His new addition to his house has come to a grinding halt halfway through construction. He's hurting big time. I never got my last check, but I did get a great group of workers and a company of my own. So I guess I'll just call it even. Wow, so you guys really tore the rug out from underneath him. Good job. This story from r/census is called A Sad But Happy Story. About a week ago, I had a case at this older house that was a local historical landmark that is over 100 years old. From the outside, you see a few cats and beautiful architecture. I approached the house and it's an older man living by himself. At first, he was hesitant about it and seemed a little out of it. He ends up accepting and ends up doing the interview outside. Throughout the interview, I ask if anyone is living there, and he says it was just him, and his cats being the only reason he is still living. He ends up telling me about his wife and his children. His wife passed on, and children rarely visit. I sympathized with how he was feeling, and he finished up the interview. I say thank you for his time, and he says,
"Please don't go. I'm all alone. Please have a seat and talk with me."
I end up talking to him for about 10 minutes about where I have traveled since he was interested in where I had been. We talked about his cats and how different life is from when he was born. He was in his 90s. I have to move on to my cases, and he thanked me for stopping by for talking to him.
"No one wants to sit and talk with an old man like myself, and it means a lot, young man."
He asked if I see anyone nearby to ask if they would like to talk to him. As I'm leaving, he yells out,
"What is your name?"
I tell him my name, and he says,
"Thanks, OP. You are an amazing young man, and I hope to talk with you again sometime."
"Oh, okay, well that is kind of sad. But it is nice that he got some human interaction going on for at least a little bit. I'm sure there are clubs and stuff for people in his situation, and I'm sure there are many people that would love to spend time and talk to him, every now and then. So, I don't know. If he's able to, he should probably get that set up, but, well, he probably would have by now."
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.